Hello. Is everyone awake still? This is the last day. I think everyone's finally in. Some of you probably just got out of bed, I would assume. All right, so I wanted to start out by saying I'm really honored to be up here on this stage. About 4 years ago this month, I actually entered into this amazing world that we're all living in. And then about 3 years ago this month, I went to my first Latin American Bitcoin conference, and it really changed my life. It changed how I was understanding that how impactful this industry could be through the stories and the projects that people were talking to me about. So from the bottom of my heart, for those of you in this room who've supported me and taught me through this journey, thank you. I appreciate it. So for me, as a marketer, I've been doing a lot of thinking in the last year about what do we need to work on as an industry? What's important? And what it really came down to, especially as someone who's supposed to be communicating these products, is we really need to dial in the stories. What are we telling to the world to help us with this whole idea of building widespread adoption? So today I want to talk a little bit more to you guys about not only my story, but how you can build your own. So humans have been telling stories since practically the beginning of time. It's how we connect, it's how we build relationships, and help people gain a new perspective. We all have a story to tell. We have a story that makes us important and interesting to those whom surround us. I'm sure some of you guys right now are sitting next to someone that you admire, that you enjoy, that you think is very smart, you like their projects, or maybe someone in the room. So think about that person for a moment and ask yourself, what makes them interesting? What makes the things they're doing interesting? And then ask yourself also, what makes you interesting and the stories and things you're creating interesting? What makes them likable? What makes you likable? And I want everyone to keep thinking about these introspective questions as I continue to talk, because they're really important in you developing your story and how you communicate to the world. My name is Emily Coleman, and I am the CMO of Shapeshift. I started my marketing career actually in restaurant, food and bev, resort marketing, and then entered in this space. And I'd like to tell you my story into the blockchain tech world. In late 2014, I was living in a small ski resort town called Telluride in Colorado, and I had left my full-time job doing resort and destination marketing. I was pretty burnt out, I was really bored, and I was just ready for something new. I had decided to take a break to kind of reset myself, so I was doing all sorts of jobs. I was doing some freelance work in tech and retail. I worked at a music store. I made pizzas at a brewery. I did whatever it could take to pay the bills until I could figure out what my next adventure was going to be. Although I didn't know what I was going to do next, I did know I wanted it to be something new and innovative and inspiring, and most importantly, I wanted it to be challenging. I wanted it to be something that I wanted to be really pouring my heart into. So one day, a friend of mine calls me up and he says, this guy, Eric Voorhees, he'd really like to sit down with you. He has this marketing job. He thinks you're a perfect fit. All you need to do is go home tonight and research this thing called Bitcoin, and you're going to be great. So I confidently sit down that night and I open my computer and I put into Google search, what is Bitcoin? And to my horror, realized there was absolutely no way that I was going to be able to nail that one in one night. So I spent all night and I studied and I researched, and the next morning I woke up and I very sadly walked down to the coffee shop that I was going to meet him and started what I believe was the worst interview of my life, in which Eric very patiently sat with me for several hours, going back and forth, teaching me what miners were, what the block explorers did, and every time that I thought I got it, I'd repeat it, didn't get it, have to start over. This went on for hours. And I remember sitting there thinking, why is he still here? Why is he still talking to me? And at the end of our talk, he offered me the job. I was pretty shocked, and I asked him, can you please give me a week? Give me a week to do some research. So for an entire week, I pored over articles. I read Satoshi's white paper, I looked over troll boards, watched YouTube videos and documentaries. I even went as far as thinking that I could set up a Bitcoin mining rig on my 5-year-old MacBook Pro. And if there's anyone in this room that is new to this space, don't waste your time. It does not work, and I'll just stop you from doing that. So all of a sudden things started to click. And I was by no means an expert, but I began to gain the clarity on the tech, the ideology, the perspectives, the personalities, and the ecosystem, scaling pain points. I couldn't get enough of it, but what really set me over the edge was actually my mom. She'd always been very careful with her decision making for herself, but she said, why don't you just do it? Just see what happens. And so I called up Eric, and I said, I'm in. I'm not really sure what I'm into yet, but I'm in it. Let's do it. So that's my blockchain tech story. I have other stories. I am a musician. I'm an avid runner, outdoor enthusiast. I love to cook. I'm a foodie, love travel. All those things have their own stories for me and allow me to gauge with different types of people I meet, forming emotional connections. And since that fateful day after meeting Eric, the past 4 years of my life have been a wild ride. This industry has gone from something a few people on the internet were talking about to a movement that has seen household influential minds like Steve Wozniak and Richard Branson vocalize support. Companies of all sizes within the finance, healthcare, business, e-commerce, nonprofit, startup, mid-size, Fortune 500, they're all trying to write a page of this crypto book. I've had the privilege of traveling the world and meeting people who are creating incredible technological solutions and projects, and the stories they've told continue to create my immense passion that I have for this industry. I've had my understanding of just how life-changing this technology can be through talking to people like Alejandro Machado, whose project, Open Money Initiative, is working to find financial solutions for people in his home country, Venezuela, where government corruption rocks these communities to the core every day. His work with his partners within the crypto ecosystem is working to find solution to these injustices, hoping to aid Venezuelan communities and the people he knows and loves, to find solace in the crypto ecosystem, to provide a more stable monetary solution, giving them the financial freedoms they need to create a financial system that actually works. I met Nyla Rogers, the founder of Mama Hope, whose organization helps African villagers become entrepreneurs, creating businesses and products their communities actually need. As I'm sure many of you know, global nonprofits have a lot of barriers in collecting and distributing donations. It can take a very long time, and by the time you pay all the fees, your dollar is no longer worth a dollar. So of course, Nyla found a solution in these challenges by collecting donations in cryptocurrencies, which allowed her to send funds faster with less fees, creating a greater impact in the communities that she services. Okay, so I think we all talk about this. The possibilities of blockchain technology are endless, and we're just getting started. But we need to get more people interested and emotionally invested in this movement. You need to get people invested in you and your company. And that's where storytelling comes in. As a marketer and someone who thinks a lot about how brands can leverage persuasive storytelling, when I meet new entrepreneurs in the blockchain ecosystem, I tend to default into asking questions to find out who they are and what they're doing. But here's the deal. I'm not your customer. We live in an ecosystem littered with difficult to understand concepts. You've got your Merkle tree, smart contracts, immutable ledgers. The list goes on, but your customer, the people around the world we all want to reach, they might not understand these concepts, and they surely are not going to be asking you. So it's your job to make this ecosystem understandable. You can do this by creating a story that is impactful, that your audience can connect to. It highlights the challenges or the pain points they're facing, and most importantly, it offers a solution that a person can attach emotion and necessity to. Yes, even the most complicated of projects, and I know there are lots of them in this space, can be simplified into an attractive narrative that engages your user group. So, I've been talking a lot about these different stories, and now I want to teach you guys a little bit about how you can do this on your own. So, there are 3 things to consider before you're creating your product. The first thing is ask the question why. You're going to want to ask it a lot. You want to know, why are you creating this product or project? Why is it impactful? Why would anyone care to use it? Why is it different from anything else out there? It's incredibly easy for us to think about the why when you have what you think is a good idea. Put yourself in your customer's shoes, but you first need to define who they are. So, who are you trying to reach? What problems do they have? What are you solving for them? What do they like? What do they dislike? You need to ask a lot of questions so you truly understand how your customer is engaging with your story or your brand. And then thirdly, what motivates you? If you can't find what motivates you, you're not going to be able to motivate others. This is so incredibly important. You need to be able to get in front of anyone, your employees, your customers, a group of strangers, as I'm doing at this very moment, and have the passion to be able to sell to them what it is you're trying to provide to the world. So these are good starting points. Let's ask these questions. But now you need to figure out, how are you actually going to tell your story? And what's really exciting about this is that there's actual formulas to this. Makes it a lot easier for those who aren't in marketing or aren't storytellers to still get their story put together. It's how movies are written, it's how books are written, it's what engages people. So, let's start out with identity. This is, where did you start? Where did you start in your journey? Define yourself here. Make sure you have clarity on what you initially decided to provide to the world. Where did everything start? Maybe you're a software developer or an entrepreneur-minded individual who was working for a big bank and was disenchanted and uninspired. And then next, turn against the status quo. This is where you ask, what did you want to change about the world? What was the challenge that you faced? This is one innovators in the blockchain tech space can and regularly do cite. You know this. Just relate it back to your identity. Let's say that you worked for a bank and you were bored. Did your discovery of new technology allow you to attach yourself to something new and groundbreaking? How did you discover this? And what did that discovery make you do that was really surprising? Third is the struggle. What did you struggle against as you started to create change? I think all of us here that have at one time entered into this ecosystem can know what that struggle was like. Your struggle might be that you are not as technical as you wish you were. You really know that you have an idea or a product to bring to light, but you don't really know how it can be done. What did that part of your journey look like? Insight. What unique tool or insight did you gain that made overcoming this challenge easier? What was your aha moment? Maybe it was by meeting a mentor that helped you form the reason and way to achieve your ideas. I know my aha moment came in just doing a ton of research and finally having things click. And then resolution. Who are you? Who are you today? What do you serve? What was the final solution to what you were working to build? This is showing who you are now versus who you were then when you started to create your identity in step one. So this is a basic formula. There are other formulas out there for storytelling. They all kind of go around this line of creating your hero moment. And if you don't believe me about this, the story I told you about my own journey, I followed this formula. The story I told you about people who've inspired me, following the same formula. It's easy enough to get these things down so that you can actually sell to your customer. So I wanted to take 2 minutes to have everyone kind of talk to each other and tell your own stories, but I'm going to run out of time. So I just want to, sitting on this slide, just say to you, look at these questions and think about it. I know we're on the last day of LABITCONF, but make sure you take time to learn each other's stories. They can be impactful for the people that you meet. Maybe your product is not something that person on the street is engaged in, but maybe you know someone else's that you can talk about. Learn about each other. I encourage all of you to do that. At the end of the day, your brand's story should make you so excited that you are that person that anytime, anywhere, will talk and engage anyone about what you and your company are doing and have them ready to run, jump, and leap down the rabbit hole with you, right then and there. We all have stories to tell, and it's our responsibility to tell them to get more people involved in this amazing, beautiful, disruptive, challenging world we are creating. What you are building is important. What you are building is impactful. You all have stories to tell. And when you leave today, promise me that you will take the time to continue to define that story. And then start telling it to your friends, your employees, anyone you meet. We can make this ecosystem monumentally important and change the world as long as we know how to tell our stories. So now to sum up, the Shapeshift team has been working very hard the last year or so on a docu-series at the beginning of this year to accomplish telling stories of many of the people that we've met over the years that are doing incredible, impactful things across the blockchain sectors. And so we interviewed 6 different people, some sitting in this room right now. There's going to be some familiar faces, and then some that are not as familiar. And this has culminated in a docu-series that we have called Down the Rabbit Hole. And the purpose of doing this series was to showcase 6 beautiful stories to humanize our industry and create emotion and attachment for outsiders to engage with, making our industry as a whole more relatable and motivating. So the 10-minute segments, they're all going to be released in February, but for the first time, we are showing you all the film trailer. So I hope you enjoy. Ready to cue video.
We are currently performing a very radical and very dangerous experiment of eliminating privacy wholesale from entire populations.
It's crazy that in this moment of history, we are still talking about poverty and hunger.
The development system was broken. The communities were not being included.
At what point did you hear about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin?
When I was younger, I listened to all the music from the 60s and 70s, but I was also reading a lot. When I found out about the Federal Reserve, the light bulb went off, and I was thinking, we've got some problems coming up.
The first article I read, I was pretty dismissive. Virtual currency goes up by 800% in 6 months. What hit me was when I really understood that there was no one behind it. It couldn't be shut down. And then I was just hooked.
Why is any of this important? Why does it matter at all?
These currencies allow us to infuse human values into them for the first time.
But now we have to see how we can use these technologies to enforce more complex social contracts.
It's not a bank, it's not a government, it's people, and it's a new set of values.
You can't be yourself when you're under the eye of others, especially powerful others.
The same fire burns within all of us. It's just expressed a little bit differently.
Thank you. So we will be premiering these in February of next year. Each episode, like I said, is about 5 to 10 minutes. So we do have a mailing list that you can sign up for if you want to get notifications on them. And we are working on distribution channels now, so we will be announcing where those will be able to be found over the course of the next month. So thank you so much for taking time to listen.